Hey everybody, it's Paul again. This is the second lesson where I want to try to teach you guys some chords. I'm trying to teach you the three most important chords I think when you play guitar is G, C, and D. The reason those are important is because it represents the first, fourth, and fifth chord in the key of G. Um, if you know anything about popular music, there are a lot of songs that are written with the 1, 4, 5 chord progression or some kind of variation on those. And G is a really popular key, so I'm going to try to teach you guys those chords today. Start with the G chord. The G is played with all 6 strings. Typically, I'm going to show you these open chords. Open means that there's at least one string that I don't have my finger on. Those are the easiest chords to learn to begin with, and there's an open chord for almost every chord on the chart. The G chord is all 6 strings, and the way you play it is you have your middle finger on the 3rd fret of the top string. That's your G. And then on the next string, you got your finger on the 2nd fret, which is a B. Then the next 3 strings you play open. It means you don't touch them at all. You just let them ring open. And then on the very last string, you put your ring finger on the 3rd fret, which is also a G, but it's 2 octaves above the G that you played up here. Okay, so when you put them all together, you want to finger all 3 of the strings and then play them individually to make sure that your fingers aren't overlapping or touching another string that they shouldn't touch. And if you play them individually, you're going to hear that if you're doing that. So I'm going to play them all separately. It should sound like this. And notice how you can hear every note, and I'm not fretting out. Fretting out means if you got your finger behind a fret and you're not pressing hard enough, you're too far away from the fret, you're going to hear something like that. Get used to that because you're going to hear that a lot when you're learning these chords. So again, I'm going to play all the strings again. And then once you got it down, then I would recommend practicing like this. You just play them all individually and then strum it together. And do that until you get the chord down. All right. The next chord I'm going to show you is the C chord. Now this one only uses the bottom 5 strings. The way you play this is you put your ring finger on the 2nd from the top string on the 3rd fret. Okay, and then you put your middle finger on the next string down on the 2nd fret. Then the next string is open. The 2nd to last string is on the 1st fret, and you're going to put your index finger on the 1st fret. And then the last string is open. So if we play them all together, it should sound like this. Okay, you're going to practice that just like you practice the G chord. You play all the notes individually, and then you strum it. Okay. The last chord I'm going to show you is the D chord. This one was probably the trickiest one for me when I was first learning because you got to kind of contort your fingers. It's not nice like the C chord where they just kind of fall in. You're going to put your index finger on the 3rd to last string and behind the 2nd fret. Okay, and then your ring finger is going to go on the next to last string on the 3rd fret. And then on the last string, you're going to put your middle finger on the 2nd fret. And I forgot to say this at the beginning, but this string, the D string, is played open. Okay, so when you put all that together, and remember it's only the bottom 4 strings. Remember to practice that where you play each note individually to make sure you're not fretting out or missing a note, and then strum it. Okay. Now the last thing you want to do is put it all together, and this is where you start learning to strum, and you're going to start learning some timing. what I would recommend is get your metronome if you've got a metronome. If you don't have one yet, you can just play along with this video. I'm going to start my metronome at 60 beats a second. You might need to start it slower than that if you're just starting out. And I'm going to show you a pattern that you can use to get your rhythm down and to be able to transition between these chords quickly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start the metronome. And then for every tick, I'm going to strum down. And then I'm going to strum, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to strum the G chord 4 times, because there's 4 beats in a measure. I'm going to play one measure of G. And then I'm going to play the C chord 4 times. And then I'm going to play the D chord 4 times. And then I'm going to go back to G. Okay? And that would sound like this. Okay? Now this is really important. You want to get that down to where you can play that perfectly. Don't speed up until you get it to where there's no extra time in between the strums of the same chord and strums of a different chord. So if you're playing like this, then you're playing too fast. You need to slow it down, get it as slow as possible, and I don't care if it's 1 beat a minute. You want to get it to where you can transition between the chords seamlessly. It doesn't even sound like you're changing chords. You want to make sure that the timing is perfect. Once you get that down, then you can start speeding up. So hopefully that's enough to get you started with the basic 3 chords that you need and the rhythm, playing 4 beats a measure. And well, once you get that down, come back and check out my next lesson.